Hey, 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 happy Thursday. Come on in, pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you shockingly enough by thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So, welcome aboard. Tonight is Thursday, June 15th, 2023. This is live stream 933. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out, super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news, and usually taking a first look at a game. Every once in a while, we'll do a review, which is actually what's taking place tonight, because I'm going to share my thoughts about the Lord of the Rings role-playing from Free League Publishing. And I will get into my review in a bit. But remember, super casual. We're not performing rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination around these here parts. So if you are tuning in to watch the live review, keep in mind, we always tackle the tabletop gaming news first. So it is going to probably be about 40 minutes before I dive on into the Lord of the Rings role-playing. So if you are watching live, kick back, put your feet up, relax. It's Thursday, or as the Motor City Madman points out, it's Friday Eve. So, like I said, just kick back, relax. But if you are watching this 30 minutes or more after the show ends, there will be timestamps. So if you are the impatient type, you just can't sit around and catch all the cool tabletop gaming news that's out there, and you just gotta get to the review, I understand. So those timestamps are located in the show notes. And depending on what device you might happen to be watching this on, could be right there in the timeline in front of you. Regardless, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Lastly, this is a live stream. So that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you happen to be a subscriber, and you have been a subscriber to the channel for more than 48 hours, you can take part in chat. So if you want to say howdy, maybe you got a question, a comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my best to respond. First out the gate tonight, of course, as I mentioned, is the Madman, one of our chat moderators. So he is with us, as is Anthony Good, Stray Kismet, John Muscola, and Coco B. Coco B says, let me give you a hand and give this vid a like. Yes, please do. Disfod92 is also popping on into chat. So is Kathy Evans. So everybody's just rolling on in. So we've got a nice chat already off and running. So before we jump on into today's edition of the news, let me once again remind you that all this week, the Gaming Gang Dispatch has been sponsored by Deus Ex Machina and their crowdfunding project for Ultra Modern 5 So let's take a look.
Steampunk, space opera, espionage, supernatural, cyberpunk. Pick your setting, or play them all. In 2016, Ultramodern 5 exploded onto the gaming scene. On DriveThruRPG, it earned a copper badge in a day, silver in 2, finally reaching platinum after only 3 months. At the time, one of only 2 third-party 5e books to do so. Ultramodern 5 doesn't present one world. Instead, it provides the tools to make your own settings within the 5th edition framework. In the original book, classes, equipment, and scenarios were generalized. In this revised edition, every facet is being expanded, including rules regarding mecha, cybernetics, and the paranormal, effectively doubling the size of the original publication. More weapons, more armor, more opponents. This new edition of Ultramodern 5 will replace all previous artwork with new color illustrations provided by Hugo-nominated artist Nick Greenwood. The main books will also be supported by downloaded digital modules, including new standalone adventures and expanded rules tied to a new setting, Affinity, which blends many of the elements of Ultramodern 5 together. With Ultramodern 5, you can harness the tools to create any world you want, mix them all, or focus on one. The only limit is your imagination.
Hi, I'm
Ultramodern 5 is up on Backer Kit. I kept almost saying Kickstarter before. It is up on Backer Kit, and it is about 80% funded at this point. It actually just launched on Tuesday. And yes, you notice I just cut that ad off because I'm watching, and there's a point where the screen goes black. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is Chris Deas. And that was our original. Like, damn it, he got me. Got me. I thought it was the end. Because I was kind of like moving some stuff around and I'm glancing up. Oh, okay, yeah, the video's still going. Then I'm like, oh, it went to black. Man says they just backed Ultramodern 5 today. If you have an opportunity, let Chris Diaz know that you backed by way of hearing it from Jeff at the Gaming Gang. Because, once again, they did sponsor this week. Should also point out, I have shared a video with my thoughts of Ultramodern 5. I didn't actually have a physical copy of the book, so I had to pull images and that from the PDF, which I'm not all that, thrilled with. But they liked it, so I'm like, okay. They liked it quite a lot. Stray Kismet and Flaming Heron, as well as Tessie Trekkie, are in chat. Flaming Heron happens to be another of our chat moderators, and I'll take a wild stab in the dark that we may have our 3rd and 4th chat moderators hanging around. At least I'm pretty sure we probably have our 3rd. She's lurking. Maybe. I don't know. Tessie Trekkie also points out that they were screaming like a boy band fan because Ultraviolet Grasslands 2E is now out. It was funny. I saw the UVG and I was like, oh, it's Ultraviolet. And I'm like, wait a second. What does the G stand for again? And I have the 1st edition. I just never actually had an opportunity to read through it. So Veteran Greyblocks is with us saying that they backed it using the link in the video. Do they track that? They did not give me a tracking code. So it's just the regular link. So, oh well, but no, that's okay. That's all right. They know that they're getting some traffic from our ads. Yes, and Sarah D, our 3rd chat moderator. is hanging with us. She's always lurking. Very nice. Very nice. So let's jump on into the news because arriving from Pegasus Spiele is Istanbul. Choose and write. Here's what I know. Welcome back to the Istanbul Bazaar. Once again, players take on the role of shrewd merchants whose goal is to gather goods in lira and then trade them for the precious rubies needed to win. In Istanbul, choose and write, instead of a common set of locations in the middle of the table, each player has a bazaar in front of them as a game plan, a personal tracking sheet, where players will mark their choices as they play. On their turn, players must choose to play either a location card or a guild card. Location cards will allow all merchants to perform the action of the specified location or the action of an adjacent space on their sheet. If a player would rather prevent others from taking this follow action, they can instead play a guild card, which is expensive but triggers powerful effects. Fans of the Istanbul game series will recognize familiar locations in Istanbul Choose and Write, such as the large market and the gemstone dealer. However, thanks to the innovative choose and write mechanism, this visit to the bazaar will challenge players in a completely new way. Istanbul Choose and Write is for 1 to 5 players, ages 8 and up, plays in 30 to 45 minutes, and carries an MSRP of $34.99. So this is actually making its way into stores right now. Some online retailers are showing that it's not out yet. And then I've seen others saying that, yes, they've got it in stock. So pretty sure that this is out. If not, it'll be in just about every game store that has ordered it in July. Interestingly enough, Istanbul isn't a Stronghold Games title anymore. They had picked it up for a while, and now it is with, I don't know if it was always with Pegasus Spiele, as far as like Europe and things like that, but now it is Pegasus North America. So there we've got it. Michael Burrell is with us. This might be a first-time visit. So it's Istanbul, not Constantinople. That is what this is. Moving on to the next news piece. There are a lot of new games that are shipping right now from GMT Games that I wasn't aware were shipping. Seriously, this kind of came out of nowhere. But now shipping from GMT is the solitaire game Mr. President, the American Presidency 2001 to 2020. And here's the latest. Mr. President is a solitaire game about governing as the President of the United States in the early 21st century. It's not an election game. It begins after you've been elected. It's about sitting in the chair and trying to advance your agenda while navigating ongoing crises, political enemies, public opinion, your relations with Congress and the press, and keeping your country secure in a world of rival nations and agendas that just seems to keep blowing up around you. Mr. President is a resource management game where you never have enough resources to achieve your entire agenda. And the path you take through an always unpredictable storyline rests on the choices you make. Depending on the results of those choices and on the unfolding of a different story every game, you'll either be thinking, POTUS, piece of cake, or why was it that I wanted this job? Many times in each game. Like the actual presidents during this period, you'll have an array of allies and resources to help you as you navigate both the corridors of power. That was weird. All of a sudden, throat got really dry. You'll have an array of allies and resources to help you as you navigate both the corridors of power in the nation's capital and the uncertainties of international relations. These allies and resources will vary from game to game, but you'll always be able to rely on your Secretary of State and Secretary of Defense to help you with foreign policy and with the use, where you deem necessary, of the combat power of the U.S. military. You'll also have your Vice President, Chief of Staff, and a bevy of domestic advisors and friends in Congress to help you navigate the many challenges in Congress and domestic life and politics. And you'll always have access to at least one truly exceptional talent. This too will vary from game to game. Someone who excels in their particular job and is a force multiplier for you in their own unique way. How you lead and utilize this mix of talents and experience at your disposal will go a long way towards determining your success or failure during your shot at being president. Mr. President is for one player, age 14 and up. Playtime is going to vary by scenario. Looks like it could play out in as long as 10 hours. Carries an MSRP of $99. And I actually have a story about Mr. President, a little inside baseball story that I will share after the news. But this is a game that has been on the burner for GMT Games for a long, long time. Probably first time I heard of this was about 8 years ago. Seriously. Now, one thing I want to point out, this looks like this takes a huge amount of space. So the image you're seeing right this moment is like the length of someone's table. Because I saw a photograph of it set up at the last Con Sim World, which of course wasn't the finished product, but pretty damn close, and it was massive. And every little square that you see in some of these, I'll let it come around again. These are all portions of the board that you're seeing here too. All those squares take a counter. It's like, what? So to me, it almost looks like it is about 9 panels in width. So pretty wild. It is certainly a game that you would set up and leave in place. But this could be very, very fascinating. Really could. So anyway, I'll share that little story once we finish up the news. All right. So Disavowed 92 says the Istanbul games are pretty solid. I think it was the dice game. I think I still have it. And I've actually put it up for sale in some of the sales and never got it. Never got it. The Madman, never sold it, I should say. Madman says, I'm not sure if I have enough room for all the counters in my house. Flaming Heron says, we're going to need another table. Google Mr. President GMT, and you will see the picture I'm talking about. And it's like, holy shnikes. It's like, damn. I will take a guess. We'll probably get a chance to see this. There are like 5 games that are shipping right now from GMT. And the only one that I was aware of that was shipping soon is the latest Coin series, the one that's set in the Philippines. I knew that was coming out soon. Had no idea about the other 4. And of course, each of the next 4 shows will have a news piece about each of those new releases. So let's talk about some role-playing game news, because there's a new quick deal which has popped up on Bundle of Holding, and it features the Brinkwood role-playing game from Far Horizons CoOp. Here's the deets on the deal. Brigand! This Brinkwood quick deal presents, you guessed it, Brinkwood, the Blood of Tyrants, the Forged in the Dark Castle Punk tabletop role-playing game from Far Horizons CoOp of rebellion against world dominating vampires. The world is not as it should be. The rich feed, literally, upon the poor as blood sucking vampires who barely conceal their parasitic nature. The downtrodden people of Cardenfell struggle against the burdens of rent, payable through their toil or their blood. Evil has triumphed, but not all is lost. You are renegades, thieves, and rebels. Maybe rogues. Rogue! I like that word. I like the sound of that. Radicalized by tragedy and struggling now for freedom. Your unlikely allies, the Fae, forgotten creatures of myth, offer the means to fight your oppressors. Masks, forged of old wood and older magic, take their price, etching themselves on your very soul. But they also let you spill the blood of the vampires. From that blood, you strengthen yourself and your movement. For just $14.95, you'll get all 3 titles in the Brinkwood collection, which has a retail value of $55, as DRM free PDFs, including the complete Brinkwood The Blood of Tyrants core book, the Brinkwood Codex Rules expansion, and the gory Brinkwood art book. These savings will run through June 21st. I have encountered this in my peeking around looking at news pieces and things like that over the years. This is relatively new. I think this came out within the last 2 years, and I have heard good things about it. So it is a Forged in the Dark game, and it kind of has an Anno Dracula sort of feel to it, at least checking it out. Where, of course, Kim Newman's books and stories are set in our world. It's, our timeline, except Dracula rules over all. So, kind of interesting. So, this is a quick deal. So, this is not going to last very long. It's just going to last through, I think it's Wednesday of next week. I think Wednesday is the 21st. Next news piece, currently available in print and PDF, is the standalone Pathfinder adventure, The Enmity Cycle. Here's the latest from Paizo Inc. You either build or destroy. On the cusp of completing a grand project that would wow audiences and build solidarity between the 5 squabbling cities of the desert nation of Thuvia, a trio of renowned artists suddenly go missing, putting their plans on an indefinite hold. Who could be behind such treachery? And why would such a villain desire an end to art? Damn you, art! Explore the Thuvian city of Lamasara as your characters investigate the disappearances and prevent a poisoned performance from shaking the desert nation. Pathfinder adventure The Enmity Cycle is a standalone adventure that also includes a gazetteer of Thuvia's 5 cities and a selection of new magic and monsters for any Pathfinder campaign. The 68-page softcover is available now, just came out this week, carries an MSRP of $26.99, or you can grab just the PDF for $19.99. And I should mention, keep your eyes peeled, because this weekend I will be sharing my review of Pathfinder, The Enmity Cycle. So you may have realized if you've seen last month's edition of the Paizo preview, I've got it. So actually, this weekend you're going to find 3 Pathfinder review videos from me, and hopefully another review from Sammy. I have to reach out to her because I've not heard anything from her in a couple of weeks. So stay tuned. Stay tuned. We shall see. Batman says, yeah, art should do more than just hang around. Yes. How many of you out there remember what do you call XYZ? And then it'd be like, and you give it a name, like, Eileen. What do you call a girl whose one leg is shorter than the other? Eileen. What do you call a guy with no arms and legs who hangs on the wall? Art. Those are two of them that I remember. It's like, aha. Roger Perdome and Darius Termina and Sly Blue Demon are hanging with the gang tonight. We've got a nice chat off and running. All right, final news piece of the evening. Another role-playing game release, which is out there in print and PDF, is Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay Sea of Claws. Here's the skinny from Cubicle 7 Entertainment. To the north lies the bitterly cold and tempestuous Sea of Claws. The sea separates the Empire from the lands of Norska, where marauder tribes beseech the forces of chaos for glory and power, and vast monsters make their lairs in the fjords. The coastal provinces of the Empire, desperate to escape the stranglehold of Marienburg, scramble to construct mighty navies and sea defenses. Sailors, explorers, pirates, and wreckers all rub their hands in thought of the wealth to be won. But whilst the life on the ocean waves can reap great rewards, the risks are greater still. Sea of Claws is a guide to adventuring on the seas of the old world. This 160-page book contains a trip around the coast of the Sea of Claws, from the marshes of Coron to the blighted shores of the Troll Country to the frozen territory of the Bjornlings. A guide to manning an ocean-going vessel, ship-to-ship combat, and new approaches to trade. There's a bestiary of sea creatures, from the diminutive grim crab to the colossal black leviathan. There's the seafarer class, 8 careers for those who live on the ocean or by the coast. There's rules for exciting events, worthwhile endeavors, and deadly encounters during long sea voyages. There's information on the cult of Minan and a worship of Stromfels. Famed seafarers such as Arch Sea Lord Vrisk Ironscratch, Wulfric the Wanderer, Jago Roth, and Long Drong. I said Drong. Providing profiles for these great captains and guidance on how they might influence adventures. Sea of Claws is the perfect starting point for a new campaign set on the high seas, or the ideal book for those interested in taking an ongoing campaign out of the Empire and to distant lands across the seas. The 160-page Sea of Claws, which, strangely enough, I think DriveThruRPG indicates it's 144. Might be wrong. Anyway, according to Cubicle 7 Entertainment, it's 160 pages. The hardcover is available now. It carries an MSRP of $39.99, or you can grab the PDF over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. And this is also supposed to be on its way. So this is supposed to be shipping out along with, I just shared the news about it last night. The Salzenberg? Something like that. Salzamund? Yeah, that's it. Salzamund. The city of salt and silver. So both of those are supposed to be heading my way. So I'll be sharing first looks of those as well. So Flaming Heron says, I wasn't even thinking what you were thinking, Jeff. Thanks for making me think it now. What, you weren't thinking of 16 Candles? The Asian kid and 16 Candles? All right, that is it for the news tonight. Of course, I was just talking about DriveThruRPG. Don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to visit DriveThruRPG or Dungeon Masters Guild, Wargame Vault, Storyteller Vault, any of those One Bookshelf sites, please stop by thegaminggang.com. First, click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. Those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, by all means, please stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang. And there you can make a small donation. And thankfully, there are quite a few people out there who use the banner ads and or happen to stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang. So for those of you out there who do that, thank you very much. Very much appreciated. So I will get into my little story about Mr. President in just a couple of moments. Do want to mention, I know there were some questions last night in chat about the upcoming game sale I'm going to do. Because if I'm covering Gen Con by myself, if you didn't watch last night, my nephew isn't going to go. After he spent the past 6 months swearing up and down, promising that he was going to go. He wanted to go. Can I go with you, Uncle Jeff? Can I have that other press pass? So if I'm flying solo at Gen Con, I'm probably not bringing stuff to the auction. Because as I mentioned before, last night, I think they're doing construction right over there by the Crown Plaza and stuff. Because supposedly the John Mascola, I think, had mentioned last night that he lives near Indy and he's going to Gen Con this year. Hey, I should point out, if you're going to Gen Con, any of you, be sure to reach out, because normally at night, I just go out, grab something to eat, have a couple of drinks, things like that. That's usually kind of our modus operandi in the evenings. So, I mean, if anybody's up for doing some gaming or go grab something to eat, let me know. Let me know. So, anyway, I understand that the festivities that they usually have on Georgia Street are not going to be taking place. Like they have food trucks and stuff. So, if that's the case, I'm guessing that the parking garage that's over there is not going to be open. Or if it is open, that you won't actually be able to get over to the convention center from it easily. And I am not wheeling a bunch of stuff all over creation to take with me to the auction. So that is a financial hit for me, because that is one of the things that helps keep the Gaming Gang around. So we shall see. We will find out. Anyway, the sale will probably launch Monday. And if you're interested in finding out what is part of the game sale, I'll have a little block ad or something on thegaminggang.com starting probably Monday afternoon or something. And I'm going to do it for 3 weeks, because I'm still planning on going to San Diego Comic-Con. I'm not sure if I'm going to, but that is still the game plan, because the people who are supposed to be going to that are still going, because they're not my nephew. I'm disowning him. Like here, it says bad Cameron. Yes, that's right. Bad Cameron. So anyway, so wanted to let you know, because I know I thought I saw a couple of people in chat yesterday were like, how will we know about what's in the sale? I always list it, and I'll have like photos and stuff. And keep in mind, all the stuff is in pristine condition. So a lot of the stuff I sell is, stuff that I either get like to review, and if it's a like a board game or something like that, we only play it 3 times. I shouldn't say only. We play it 3 times, and it's pretty much it. So Batman says they're planning on going to Gen Con next year. So COVID had messed up their plans for Dragon Con last year. Yes, because I know the Madman goes to Dragon Con. So anyway, Madman says Gen Con's next. Yeah, if you've never been to Gen Con and you are a gamer, you really gotta. You really have to go to Gen Con. It's my favorite convention. And I know like my brother, he's more into comics than I am. In fact, it's funny, I got him back into comics. So of course, Comic-Con is like a show he loves, even though comics make up very little of Comic-Con out in San Diego now. And I have a good time, but it's not Gen Con. I mean, Gen Con is my convention. It's the one I enjoy the most. I know Origins is, I believe, going on this week. Last time I went to Origins, that was all right. It's I don't know if they've kind of stabilized as far as attendance, but they seem to have been bleeding attendees. They were like, oh, I think they were like, oh, we had 15,000 last time I went. I was like, oh, absolutely not. It's like I was here. So Flaming Heron points out that I care for my games. And the Madman says, yes, I get the idea. Jeff treats games the same way he does. They are pristine even after multiple plays. Yes, because Flaming Heron, I don't know if Flaming Heron has. I know the Madman's purchased some stuff in the sales. I think Flaming Heron has. I don't know. Anyway, so that's that. So the Mr. President story. I'm pals with game design. Well, he hasn't really designed anything in a while, but John Welsh, you may recall, he designed some games for Victory Point Games. He did Levy and Mass. I think he's probably best known for Cruel Necessity, which was one of those like box games that Victory Point Games came out with. Not like the box games, which were like their last 3 or 4 releases before they didn't really go belly up. They got bought by Tabletop Tycoon, which used to be Game Salute. And you can still buy some stuff. But I do understand. I think last time I had talked to John, which is probably a couple of years now, they were going to he had gotten the rights back from Tabletop Tycoon. They asked him if he wanted the rights back to Cruel Necessity. And somebody out there was going to do a new edition of it. I think it was Worthington off the top of my head. So anyway, so I'm out in California. This is back when I would deliver vehicles around the country and that. And I just happened to be going through where actually I was, if I remember right, I had already dropped off in the same town that John lives in. And up until this year, which he just retired, he was a history teacher. So anyway, we get together, and we go out to dinner, and we stop back over by his house, and he's showing me some stuff that he's working on. So he had 2 games that he was working on for GMT. One was a coin game, and it was the Irish Revolution. So it was originally, I guess it was going to be called Black and Tans, and I was like, oh God, no. But I was like, that's not really the title, is it? He's like, no. He had already heard about it. He's like, no. So it was going to be called A Terrible Beauty. Nothing ever happened with it. And then the other game he was working on was Mr. President. So Gene Billingsley over at GMT, I'm sure it's not a big deal of me sharing this story. Doesn't paint anybody in a bad light, really. But so I guess that concept has been like a game that Gene Billingsley has wanted to make forever. So John was working on it. And the thing is, when you're designing a game, you have to come up with prototypes. You're creating prototypes, and all that comes out of your pocket. So in John's case, John had pointed out that he had already spent a few $100 on these components and stuff for Mr. President. And it just wasn't. He'd send it in to Gene, and Gene would say, tweak this. I'd like you to tweak that, and so on and so forth. And then it just got to the point where John wasn't going to be designing the game. That I think Gene is actually considered to be the designer, although I did see there is a credit for John on it. But the interesting thing too is I know a lot of people out there think, oh, game designers because you figure GMT's a decent sized company as far as board games, right? I mean, in my opinion, I'm not sure, but take a look at, like, say, Stronghold Games, right? If you take Stronghold Games, you take Terraforming Mars out of the equation. GMT is far bigger than Stronghold Games. They have far more titles. You got to remember, Twilight Struggle is GMT. So I would take a guess there are probably as many people who own Twilight Struggle, maybe even more people own Twilight Struggle than they do Terraforming Mars. And I'm not knocking Terraforming Mars or Stronghold Games. I'm just saying some people may not realize that GMT Games is a pretty good sized game company. Well, you got to pay for all this stuff out of your own pocket if you want a developer. And this is for most game companies out there as well, because most designers need a developer, because there are a lot of designers who are really good at, like, the conception of things, but good luck getting them to actually put together, rules, instructions that make sense and stuff like that. Well, normally you don't really get a developer from, like, the company. Some game companies do, but most game companies do not provide you with a game developer. It's like, well, you got to get your own developer. So that's more cost out of your pocket, either paying up front or saying, hey, I'll give you a cut. So unfortunately, it never came to fruition. Those two game designs by my buddy John, who's probably one of the nicest people you would ever meet in the game industry. I mean, just a class guy all around. Kind of too bad. And I'm going to take a wild guess that Mr. President, even though it says it's medium complexity, I'm going to take a guess that it is going to be very complex. Because if Gene Billingsley is the designer, Gene's also designer of the Next War series from GMT, which are pretty complex. So, and I think Gene likes complexity. So once again, I'm not knocking the fact that it's going to be pretty complex, but I'll take a guess it's going to be far more complex than it would have been as a John Welsh design. So there's my little story, my little inside baseball story about Mr. President. Coco B said, please don't talk about shipping. Flaming Heron says, yeah, Jeff looked into shipping for him. Yeah, I remember that. And it was as much as buying the game for full price. I think that was the shipping. I don't think it was the shipping and the game. I think it was just the shipping was that. All righty then. So tonight, I am going to share my review of the Lord of the Rings role-playing from Free League Publishing. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's time to refresh. For your convenience, we have an attractive snack stand with a parade of items to tempt your taste. Buttered popcorn, golden good and hot from the popper, sizzling hot dogs, cradled in fresh, fluffy buns, ice cream treats and other good things to eat, plus ice-cold Coca-Cola. So bright, so bracing with the taste and tingle all its own. Pause and refresh with a Coke at our snack stand. Right now.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Sizzling hot dogs, bursting with juicy goodness. Crispy, crunchy, hot buttered popcorn. Really good. Crisp, golden brown French fries. Pizza, fresh baked taste delight for young or old. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
The whole family's getting together to show Dad how much he's appreciated. It's so nice to have a man around the house. But here's an extra surprise. Somebody's treating the whole family to the most enjoyable gift of all. Get the hint? Take Dad and the family on a pleasure-filled outing to the movies at our special Father's Day show, Sunday, June 21st.
Wilkins decaffeinated coffee is best at any price.
Oh, you just say that because
what?
Because it's true.
Now, from Planet of the Apes, exciting, lifelike figures. Move them, position them. Help Galon and the astronauts escape. And from Star Trek, voyage into the unknown with Mr. Spock and the crew from the Enterprise. Will they defeat the dreaded Klingon? It's up to you. Planet of the Apes and Star Trek, exciting, lifelike figures, new from Palatoy.
And now, on with the show.
Yes, the Mego action figures. Nice. I used to have the Marvel superheroes. Well, my brother and I both. Boy, I wish that we still had those in the boxes. I wish we had a period, even without the boxes, but wow. And interestingly enough, that commercial is from 1975 because it's advertising the figures for the Planet of the Apes TV series. So just think. So that's 75. Star Trek the Motion Picture hadn't come out yet. I mean, back then, most people, especially like kids, we didn't have any like advanced knowledge of movies that were coming out. It wasn't like, oh, so I hear Close Encounters of the Third Kind is in post-production. It wasn't anything like that. It was like we'd see a trailer and be like, hey, wow, that looks pretty cool. Let's go see that. Man says they wish they still had their old metal lunch boxes from elementary school. I had a lot of game stuff back in the day. I had all the old D&D stuff, AD&D stuff. I had tons of Avalon Hill games, Victory games, SSI. I wish I had that stuff Because I mean, I actually had some modules for AD&D that sell for hundreds of dollars now. So, oh well. Mike Larson is joining us in chat. Welcome, Mike. So tonight, I am going to be sharing my review of the Lord of the Rings role-playing from Free League Publishing. It's written by Francesco Nepatello and Michelle Garbugio, with artwork provided by, and get ready, the name butcher has arrived, Martin Grip, Alvaro Tapia, Jan Pospisil, Nicholas Brandt, Henrik Rosenborg, Antonio Di Luca, Federica Costantini, take it a shot, Luca Saucho, Danielle Sorrentino, yeah, here we go, here's another one, Sorrentino, I almost said Sorrentento, not even close, Melissa Spandry, and Giudita Betty. I told you, I'm the name butcher. See, I mess up fictional names and places and real people's names and real places too, I'm sure. This 236-page hardcover is available now. Carries an MSRP of $49.99, or you can grab just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $24.99. So let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got the Lord of the Rings role-playing. So this is, in essence, the One Ring role-playing game modified for the 5e D&D rules. A few things I do want to mention as we jump on in. First of all, the fine folks over at Free League Publishing were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. And these days, it's important that you know that. I am not going to share each and every page. I'm not going to go over every tiny aspect of this game, but I do want to give you a very good feel for the Lord of the Rings role-playing and provide my thoughts about it as well. Flaming Heron says, don't worry, Jeff. People mess up my surname, and I really don't think it's hard to say. People butcher my last name constantly. They add letters that aren't even in it. One of them I used to get all the time was McGaller. And I was like, where's there a G? There is no G. All righty. So let's start off by talking about the production quality. Top notch, as we expect from Free League Publishing. One thing I will point out that I think is kind of interesting, because Free League doesn't tend to go with these kind of shiny covers very often, but it's almost like they're kind of aping the D&D books with this. So I thought that was kind of interesting. But the interior, once again, we have that really nice, almost like a parchment style paper that's very thick and will hold up to repeated use at the table. So it's important for me to point out that this is not the Lord of the Rings adapted for Dungeons and Dragons. So it's not like this book is designed where you're going to drop Middle Earth into your Forgotten Realms campaigns. That is not the design philosophy of this. So I will point out, I'm sure a lot of people out there are kind of curious, because they've already picked up Adventures in Middle Earth, which was from Cubicle 7 Entertainment when they had the license for the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings role-playing games, or role-playing game license, I guess I'll say. So they had the first edition of The One Ring, and they also had Adventures in Middle Earth, which was essentially a port of that first edition of The One Ring for 5e. I gotta say, comparing the two of them together, because I'm sure people are wondering, is it worthwhile to pick up the Lord of the Rings role playing if I've already got Adventures in Middle Earth? And I would have to say that this book feels more like the Lord of the Rings than Adventures in Middle Earth. I know that might sound kind of strange, but to me, and I didn't dislike Adventures in Middle Earth at all. I reviewed quite a few of the releases that came out for it, but to me, it always felt like it was more focused on porting over to 5e. Is kind of the impression that I always got. Whereas this is more in tune with it. It is the Lord of the Rings. It is Middle Earth. And how do we adapt some of these philosophies we have from the One Ring second edition to 5e mechanics? So important to keep that in mind. Agent Especial is with us. Good to see us swinging on in. As you can see, artwork throughout. We have that same line art that we see in the One Ring. I like it. I like it quite a lot. So what's cooking in this book? So as far as characters, you're going to have 6 different cultures that your player characters can come from. So of course, we've got elves, we've got dwarves, we've got hobbits, we have rangers of the north, we have the bardlings, which are also humans. And then we have callings. And these callings are essentially our classes. Now, one thing that's different with the Lord of the Rings role playing is there is a level cap. Doesn't matter what kind of character you've got. There is a level cap. It is level 10. So keep that in mind. I would have to say that, in my opinion, people who are like really into 5e D&D and really enjoy the adventures that come out from Wizards of the Coast, I don't know how great a fit this is going to be for them, because the Lord of the Rings has a vastly different vibe than, say, Forgotten Realms. Now, what the selling point of this is for players and game masters out there, or in this case, the lore keeper. If they feel very comfortable with the 5e rules and they really don't want to invest the time and energy into learning a new system, which I gotta be honest, I really think it's kind of silly to have that mindset, because learning 5e wasn't intuitive by any stretch of the imagination. 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons is not necessarily an easy game for newcomers to learn. So I don't necessarily understand when I hear people talk about how, oh, well, yeah, I know how to play 5e. I don't want to have to, learn any other new system. I don't want to play Call of Cthulhu. I don't want to have to learn all those new dice and stuff. And it's like, it's not new dice. I've been rolling these dice for years. So there is some discussion of Sarah D's lineage. So Agent Especial says they'd kill for someone to run the One Ring for them. I'll talk about the One Ring a little bit when I kind of sum things up. So we've got a lot of new aspects to utilize for 5e. So we have virtues. So the virtues are sort of like specialties. We have backgrounds. So there's a lot going on as far as customizing your character. And I really like the options that are available as far as the backgrounds and these virtues. And we have magic items that could give you special abilities. Now, keep in mind, I guess a lot of people don't realize this, but Lord of the Rings is a low fantasy setting. It's low magic. I know some people are like, no, get out of here. It's like, yes, it is. There aren't like hundreds of, non-human creatures out there. There aren't like 100 magic spells. So it's something to keep in mind. But I really do love the options that are available. As far as your character creation, there's actually more options in this than there are for the One Ring. And I think part of that is because this is aimed at the 5e crowd. The 5e crowd is going to expect more character design options than maybe somebody who's coming to the One Ring. So we have essentially our games broken up into two aspects. So we have the adventuring, and we also have the kind of like follow up to it. So we've got the journey, and we have the fellowship. So it's kind of interesting how this works. So the fellowship phase is like your downtime phase, but there's all these different things that you can do, and it's pretty interesting. And then the adventuring portion is scene based. So this, of course, once again, I talk about railroading and things like that. It's pretty much par for the course now that adventures are railroads. It's just you have to make sure that there is some player agency that's taking place, and that is the case with the adventures for both the One Ring Second Edition and the Lord of the Rings role playing, which of course I will be reviewing the Shire book soon enough. So you've got the adventuring portion, which is pretty standard. That's your exploration, your combat, your social aspect. Although, funny enough, we have council. So we have like a council kind of phase. It's not really a phase, but it's anything that's like a social encounter is considered to be a council. So one aspect of the Lord of the Rings role playing that I don't know really how I feel about is how we've got the what tends to be kind of a natural flow of a role playing game broken up into phases. So it's like, oh, well, this is where you're journeying. So you've got the journeying phase. So the journeying phase only takes place when you're like on your way going places, but it's not like if you were going a short distance. So, and I mean, the funny thing is, there are cool things that can take place. So, you've got the adventuring, you've got the fellowship, you've got journeying, you've got councils. To me, it just doesn't feel natural. But once again, this was how the One Ring is set up as well. So there's a lot that I like in here. I think this captures Middle Earth, the world of Tolkien, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings really well. I honestly feel that. And this is supposed to take place about 20 years or so after Bilbo went off on his adventure. So it actually takes place, if I remember correctly, it's later in the timeline of the Third Age than the first edition of The One Ring and Adventures in Middle Earth. So we're closer to the events in The Lord of the Rings. So we do have the Shadow Rising. Another aspect of this I really like quite a bit is that players can actually be tainted by shadow. So there are things that can take place or events or things that they can see where they'll have to make a saving throw to not gain shadow points. But if the player characters intentionally do evil things, they will get shadow points regardless. There is no save against intentionally doing evil things in the game. I like that because, once again, as I've pointed out before, I am not a fan of running games where the player characters are evil. I don't mind some shades of gray. It's just not my bag. Just like when I'm playing a computer role-playing game, I never play an evil character. It's just not my thing. So anyway, we have about 30 pages or so that's devoted to Eriador, and that is the only area that is actually really discussed in depth here. And I mean, it's a pretty good size area for adventuring. I mean, the Shire is there. Dale is part of that. But we don't have Rohan or Gondor or Mordor, which obviously enough we will see in future releases. So something about the Lord of the Rings role playing that's important for people to understand is there is an assumption that is made that you know the ins and outs of 5e mechanics. So you can utilize the player handbook or the SRD. Honestly, in my opinion, I would recommend have the 5e player's handbook, and the reality is the Dungeon Master's Guide, at least in my opinion, because there are parts in the book where they're like, oh, well, we're not going to rehash the rules for this or the rules for that. And like I said, it's just there's an assumption that you are going to know the ins and outs of 5e mechanics. So it's important for people to know that. So if you're looking at the Lord of the Rings role playing and you're not overly familiar with 5th edition, so maybe you're thinking, oh, well, okay, I could pick this up and I pick up the player's handbook and that gives me what I need to run this. I would recommend just go with the One Ring, because you're just going to learn one game. You're not going to have to understand the mechanics of 5e and then learn this as well. Something else, patrons. Your player characters belong to a fellowship. So there are no murder hobos in Middle Earth as far as your player characters. They are a fellowship. They have a common goal. They respect each other and they care about each other. And they can have patrons, which all the patrons really are is a source for some bonuses that the player characters could get, as well as adventure hooks to get them off and running with the various different adventures that are available. There's a bestiary within, which provides the major monsters that you would encounter in Middle Earth. We have an introductory adventure that is actually pretty decent. I like this adventure, and it does have, most importantly, a Middle Earth feel, which, if it didn't, what would be the point of picking up the Lord of the Rings role playing? Because that's what you're looking for. Is if you are looking to run adventures or play in adventures in J.R.R. Tolkien's sandbox, this is a very good choice for you if you want to use the 5e rules. If you're just sitting there like, oh, well, I want 5e, but I want to drop the Lord of the Rings into it, then I would have to point out, no, this is not a good buy for that. So the Madman says, no murder hobos. What? Says it's the same with adventures in Middle Earth. They gain shadow points if they follow that path. Yes, and there's different things that will happen to the characters mechanically if they accrue shadow points. And one is that they have a critical failure on rolls of 1 and 2 as opposed to just a 1. All right, so that's a look inside the Lord of the Rings role playing. Swing on over to the other camera. I'm going to share my thoughts about the game and give it a review score. I like the Lord of the Rings role playing. I'll be very honest, I don't believe I would run it. I would go with the One Ring. Simply because, and as I mentioned, one of the things that's different about the Lord of the Rings role playing as opposed to the One Ring second edition is you actually have more character creation options in this book, which I would think may surprise some people. But to me, I don't mind learning a new system. It's still based on the Free League Publishing's Year Zero engine, where you're rolling 6-sided dice, you're looking for successes, and things along those lines. So I would personally think if you're someone who is not like embedded in 5e rules, then go with the One Ring second edition. It's to me, it's a far easier system to learn. And much of this is the same. It's the same design philosophy. To me, having to kind of adjust things so that they fit with the 5e mechanics makes the Lord of the Rings role playing feel a little clunky. Not terribly so, but a little bit. I do recommend this, don't get me wrong, because if you are interested in running games like, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, I don't think they have the rights to include stuff from the Silmarillion or the Lost Tales or anything like that. I think the license only covers The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings. But if you are a game master out there and you're very well versed with 5e and you're not looking to learn a new system, this is definitely got to be on your radar. You've got to really be considering picking this up if that's the case. So I like it, but like I said, and I felt the same way about Adventures in Middle Earth when compared to the first edition of the One Ring, I felt Adventures in Middle Earth felt kind of clunky because there are some core design philosophies with 5e D&D and the One Ring that aren't really compatible, in my opinion. So it's, in some ways, it almost feels like trying to bang a square peg through a round hole. But I still like this quite a lot. So I would say your mileage is going to vary as far as the review score. If, once again, you're not embedded in 5e, I would say shave a point off. But if you are, I would say add a point on. So on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the Lord of the Rings role playing a 7 out of 10. I do recommend it. I like it. If it was my choice, I would run the One Ring second edition. But if you are a fan of Tolkien and you want to use 5e mechanics, I don't think you can really go wrong with the Lord of the Rings role playing. All right, so that is my review. So Flaming Heron, I'm just kind of checking out some of the chat that I've missed. Flaming Heron says, can't remember the last time I played in a game with a murder hobo. That player was an asshat. The Mayorman says, a long time ago, I'm sorry, I take that back. A longtime player in his 5e group was more interested in rolling dice than creating a story. He ended up dropping out of the group. I find that weird. I've encountered that before with people who are like, they just like rolling dice, and it's like, seriously, go to the casino. It's like, what? Kevin King has joined us in chat. Sweet. Sweet, sweet. Flaming Heron says, yeah, mine was worse. He just wanted to cause drama with the party for the sake of making his own story. I have dealt with players like that too, where you come to learn that you got to give them their 10 minutes of spotlight time to keep them, satisfied for like 3 hours. Yeah, I remember that. Thankfully, he never got out of hand with it, but it was like, oh, here we go. It's Paul time. It's like, you guys want to go grab something to drink in that? Going to run some Paul time here. All righty then. So that is it for this time out. Join me on Monday because I will be sharing my review of Dog Park from Birdwood Games. So I will be sharing that. I should have the Pendragon starter set from Chaosium Inc. Don't have it yet. It is in transit. So I think we will actually take a look at that on Tuesday's show. And then I think, damn it, I did it again. On Tuesday, I'll be reviewing Dog Park. On Wednesday, we'll look at the Pendragon starter set. And then on Thursday, I think I'll share my review of Cyberpunk Red, the core rulebook. So that will be what's going on. On Monday, I will be kicking off my Masks of Nyarlathotep campaign. So, and I've got 4 players. So Agent Especial says, oh my God, Pendragon. Yeah, tune in on Wednesday. And for all of you dads out there, have a very happy Father's Day this weekend. So I am not. So I don't get to celebrate. I don't get any gifts. I don't get a tie. It's okay. So if you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, because you're not only keeping me company, but you're keeping each other company as I'm completely butchering artists' names. But of course, I know a lot of people out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you very much for taking time out to watch any of the videos here on the channel. Of course, don't forget, give this video a quick like and subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And of course, if you do subscribe, ding that bell because you'll not only be notified when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also inform you when I upload other videos, such as my upcoming review of Pathfinder, the Enmity Cycle from Paizo Inc. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more that you will not find here on the YouTube channel. And once again, on Monday, I will be kicking off the latest game sale, which will help defray the costs of San Diego Comic-Con and Gen Con this year. All right, everybody, enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. Once again, all dads out there, have a fantastic Father's Day. And here's hoping each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.
Oh, hey, you're still here. That's okay. You don't have to leave just yet. In fact, why don't you subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel right here, or take a peek at the latest live stream, or even find out what YouTube recommends you check out from the channel. And of course, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thanks again for watching.